Carl Jung once said that every human being carries within them a shadow, the unconscious part that holds our desires, fears, and traits we don't want to acknowledge. In the narcissist, this shadow is not only denied, but projected onto others. They turn you into a mirror, reflecting the darkness within themselves, then manipulate you through emotions, words, and mind games that keep you constantly on the defensive. When you get pulled into the spiral of arguments, you unintentionally become the energy source that sustains their false self. Jung would say this is the moment you lose touch with your true self and get drawn into the psychological script the narcissist has crafted. In today's video, we're not only going to talk about why you should never argue with a narcissist, but also explore an alternative strategy, an approach that allows you to protect yourself while stripping them of their psychological power over you. This is a blend of practical strategy and deep insights from Carl Jung's psychology, designed to help you not only break free, but also grow stronger and more self-aware after this experience. Stay until the end, because in the final part, I'll share one single principle. If you truly grasp it, you will never again be pulled into another pointless argument with a narcissist. Part 1. Accepting the truth. They will not change. One of the hardest, yet most liberating truths in any relationship with a narcissist is this: they will not change. Not because you haven't loved enough, been patient enough, or haven't found the right way to make them understand, but because they do not believe the problem lies within them. To them, every conflict is caused by someone else. Every flaw belongs to someone out there, and their ego, fragile as it may be, is protected by an impenetrable armor of arrogance. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The narcissist refuses to face that darkness. They not only hide their shadow from others, but also from themselves. Instead of acknowledging selfishness, envy, or the fear of abandonment, they push it all onto others, turning people into mirrors that reflect what they deny. If you believe you can make them better, you are stepping into a dangerous spiral, what Jung called the salvation fantasy. This is when we unconsciously believe that our love, sacrifice, and patience will be the medicine to heal them. But remember, you cannot heal someone who enjoys their sickness as a tool of power. Why is this hope dangerous? Because it keeps you there. It makes you overlook the obvious signs, accept the unacceptable, and slowly erode your boundaries. You stay not because love is growing, but because you hope that one day they will wake up and see your worth. But for the narcissist, waking up means giving up the energy supply they are taking from you, and that is something they will avoid at all costs. See them as is, as they truly are. Here's an image I want you to keep in mind. When you buy an item, the seller labels it as is, meaning you accept it in its current state, with no warranty, no returns. The narcissist is the same. You're not buying a better future version of them. You only get the present version with all the ingrained traits, habits, and defense mechanisms. Put that as-is label on their forehead in your mind. When you do this, you start letting go of the illusion that you can reshape them. Instead, you begin making decisions based on reality, not promises or dreams. When the truth sets you free, at first, accepting that they will not change might feel like a defeat. But in reality, it's the key to freedom. When you stop expecting something that will never happen, you stop pouring your time, energy, and emotions into a hopeless project. You start asking the important questions. Where is this relationship actually taking me? Can I truly be myself around them? Am I paying for their presence with my mental health? Jung would say this is the step where you step out of the collective illusion, the belief many people hold that anyone can change if they just have enough love. In reality, change only happens when a person willingly faces their own darkness. Narcissists rarely have the motivation to do this because they've built an entire world to avoid it. Freeing yourself from the fixer role. If you're a deeply compassionate person, you're more likely to fall into the role of the fixer. You believe helping others become better is a duty, even part of your identity. But In a relationship with a narcissist, this role not only drains you, but also fuels the cycle of abuse. Every time you excuse bad behavior, thinking maybe next time they'll be different, you unconsciously send the message, you can do this and I'll still be here. Oh, Carl Jung emphasized, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. When you withdraw that consent by letting go of the fixer role, you take back your power. Acceptance is not surrender. It's crucial to understand. Accepting the truth doesn't mean giving up. It means looking reality in the eye so you can decide your next steps with clarity. You no longer waste energy arguing, persuading, or waiting for remorse. You start investing that energy in protecting yourself, nurturing healthy relationships, and rediscovering the parts of yourself you lost while being with them. A Jungian thinking exercise. Observe without justifying. Spend 1 week recording their actual behavior without adding feelings or reasons. Write down what they did, not why. Identify the salvation fantasy. Each time you think, maybe they'll change when, ask yourself, what proof do I have? When was the last time they truly changed for my benefit? Reconnect with your true self. Spend time alone doing things that make you feel whole without needing their approval. Part 2. Don't take anything personally. There is a golden rule for surviving mentally when dealing with a narcissist. Don't let their words or actions define you. It sounds simple, but in practice it's one of the hardest challenges because narcissists are masters at making you believe everything is your fault. Carl Jung explained this through the mechanism of projection. Human beings by instinct will unload their shadow, the traits, feelings, or thoughts they refuse to accept onto others. But with narcissists, this mechanism is used in an extreme and deliberate way. They turn you into a mirror, reflecting what they deny about themselves: weakness, selfishness, deceit, or even their own narcissism. Praise or criticism, both are tools. A narcissist does not compliment you because they genuinely want to uplift you. They compliment you when it serves their purpose, to make you open up, cooperate, or forget the boundaries you've set. And when they need to regain control, they will tear you down, criticize, or even humiliate you again, only to serve their own goals. Both praise and criticism, though opposite in tone, are merely tools in their emotional control strategy. If you believe one side, you become vulnerable when the other side appears. Jung would say that when you react strongly, whether with joy or pain, to what others say about you, it means the shadow within you is still waiting to be healed. Narcissists exploit this point to make you doubt yourself, waver, and ultimately depend on the definition they hand you. Don't accept the toxic gift. Imagine someone hands you a beautifully wrapped gift, but inside is nothing but trash. You have the right not to accept it. The negative emotions a narcissist tries to hand you are the same. They are gifts you can refuse entirely. Refusing doesn't mean you have to loudly fight back. In fact, sometimes the most effective refusal is no reaction at all. You don't have to explain, justify, or convince them they're wrong. You simply keep your inner boundaries intact and don't let their words touch the core of your self-worth. When you stop playing by their rules. Narcissists operate in an arena where they are the referee, the rule maker, and the one who changes the rules whenever they please. Every time you react according to their script, getting angry, crying, or trying to prove yourself, you are playing on their field. And on their field, you will always lose. But when you don't respond as expected, they lose control. They throw the ball to you, but you don't catch it. Your calmness confuses them because they no longer have a grip on the situation. Jung called this stepping out of the unconscious power game. When you stop caring what they think of you, you reclaim the right to define yourself, a right that should never have been given to anyone else. How to stop taking things personally. Spot the projection. Whenever they accuse you of something, ask yourself, what does this say about them more than it does about me? For example, if they call you selfish, it may be their way of hiding their own selfishness. Separate behavior from identity. If they say you're useless, mentally translate it into they're trying to undermine my confidence so I'm easier to control. Keep a reality journal. Record events exactly as they happened. without emotional labels or accusations. This helps you see clearly that their words often don't reflect reality. Nurture the self. Jung believed everyone has a self, the center of our being. When you connect deeply with yourself, your value is no longer dependent on others' opinions. The power of intentional indifference. This is not cold-heartedness. It's a form of protecting your mental energy. When you don't let either their praise or criticism sway you, you become dry ground where the seeds of manipulation cannot take root. A narcissist will try many ways to provoke a reaction, from fake sweetness to biting criticism. But if you remain centered, they will eventually realize the game no longer pays off. A note from Jung. Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." This does not mean you must accept abusive behavior, but it is a reminder that every time you are deeply triggered, it's an opportunity to examine your own shadow, the wounds unhealed, the fears unnamed. Once you heal that part, the narcissist loses the ability to push your emotional buttons. Temporary conclusion for this section. Do not give a narcissist the power to define you. Don't let praise inflate you or criticism crush you. Remember, everything they say or do reflects them, not you. When you master this principle, you not only protect your value, but also shake the very foundation of the power they've built over you. Part 3. Protect yourself with strong boundaries. If there is one most important keyword for surviving a relationship with a narcissist, it is boundaries. Without boundaries, you become open territory, a place anyone can invade, exploit, and take over. With a narcissist, this is especially dangerous because they neither know nor care to respect the limits of others. Carl Jung emphasized that an essential part of the individuation process is knowing who you are not, and protecting the boundaries of that self. Boundaries are not just an external fence, but an internal declaration. I respect myself and I will act accordingly. Boundaries are not to change them. This is where many people get it wrong. We often set boundaries hoping the other person will understand and adjust their behavior. But with a narcissist, that almost never happens. They may view your boundaries as an insult or as an invitation to try to break them. That's why boundaries are not a tool to fix them, but a shield to protect you emotionally, physically, financially, and mentally. Jung would say, this is the self, the core of your being, standing up to protect itself, even when the persona, your social mask, wants to appear agreeable, kind, or accommodating. The types of boundaries you need. Emotional boundaries. Not allowing them to manipulate your feelings, make you feel guilty, or shame you for things you haven't done wrong. Physical boundaries. Not allowing violations of your personal space, property, or living environment. Financial boundaries. Protecting your assets and income, refusing unreasonable loans, and not allowing your name or signature to be misused. Legal boundaries. Being ready to use the law to protect yourself when serious violations occur, even from family members. Some people feel that being this firm is unkind, especially within the family. But Jung would remind you, love never means allowing abuse to continue. A real-life story. I once worked with a woman whose brother used her name to take out bank loans and sign financial documents. She had talked to him, explained, and even begged him to stop. In response, he blamed her, saying, "You have enough money," or "It's just a small thing." She felt guilty even thinking about reporting him because he's family. But the truth was, every time she stepped back, he stepped further into her territory. Eventually, she realized that protecting herself was not betraying her family, it was refusing to enable the abuse. Taking legal action was the clearest boundary she could set. Why boundaries are hard to set. Many people don't set boundaries, not because they don't know how, but because of inner beliefs that stop them from acting. Misplaced positive belief. I'm a good person, so I must always be patient and helpful. Negative belief. If I say no, I'll be abandoned. Jung called this the inner narrative, the stories we tell ourselves, often rooted in childhood. If you grew up in an environment where personal boundaries were not respected, You may see setting them as selfish. In reality, it's a sign of psychological maturity. Actions speak louder than words. You can say, "I will not accept this anymore." But if you continue to stay and allow it to happen, the real message you're sending is, "I'll tolerate it one more time." Jung would point out that behavior is the language of the unconscious. You can talk endlessly about self-worth, but it's your actions that affirm or deny it. Strong boundaries are not just in declarations, but in consistent action. If someone crosses your line, you enforce the consequence you set instead of backing down out of fear of losing them. When boundaries become a tool for healing, boundaries don't just protect you from new harm, they also help heal old wounds. Every time you say no to what's unacceptable, you are saying yes to yourself, to your respect, safety, and freedom. This is exactly the step forward in individuation that Jung described, separating yourself from destructive influences to become a more whole person. A Jungian practice for boundaries. Identify your red lines. Write down 5 things you will not accept in any relationship. Practice short responses. Prepare phrases like, "I'm not comfortable with that," or "that doesn't work for me," and repeat them when needed. Track your reactions. Each time your boundary is tested, record your feelings and actions. This helps you spot weak points that need reinforcement. In short, boundaries are not walls that shut you off from the world. They are gates that allow healthy things in and keep harmful things out. With a narcissist, boundaries send a powerful message. You are no longer easy to control. And when you consistently enforce those boundaries, you not only protect yourself, but also open the path to becoming a stronger, more complete version of who you are. Part 4. Trust behavior, not words. In a relationship with a narcissist, words are often like counterfeit currency. They look valuable. They can even make you feel rich for a moment. But when it's time to cash them in real life, they're worthless. A narcissist is a master of words. They know exactly what to say to make you believe, to hope, and to stay. But if you observe them over time, you'll notice the same pattern. Plenty of promises, very little actual change. Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." This is the golden rule for breaking free from the confusion a narcissist creates. When you rely on their words, you live in illusion. When you rely on their actions, you live in reality. Why we believe words more than actions. Human beings are instinctively drawn to things that feed hope. When you're in a conflict-filled relationship, a promise to change feels like cool rain in the middle of a desert. You want to believe it, because believing spares you from facing a harsh truth. They are not going to change. Jung called this identification with an illusion, when we cling to an idealized image to avoid a painful reality. Narcissists exploit this. They paint a picture of a future version, where everything is better, they love you the right way, and all mistakes are corrected. But the gap between their promises and their actions is often a canyon you keep falling into. Observe instead of listen. The first step to escaping this loop is to shift your attention. Listen less. Observe more. Ask yourself, how many times have they made this promise? After each promise, what actually changed? Did the new behavior last, or did it disappear after a few days? When you start documenting actions objectively, you'll see that their words are like a movie script, plenty of great lines, but the entire storyline remains the same. Your actions matter just as much. Here's what many people overlook. It's not just their actions that matter, yours send a powerful signal too. You can say, "I won't accept being treated like this anymore." But if you stay, if you keep conceding, the real message you send is, "This is still acceptable to me." Jung would call this a conflict between the persona and the self, when the social mask, persona, says one thing to protect your image, but your actual behavior betrays the deeper needs of the self. If you want others to respect your boundaries, your actions, not your words, must be the foundation. The narcissist's testing tactic. Narcissists rarely miss the chance to test whether you really mean what you say. They'll violate a small boundary first and watch your reaction. If you let it slide, they'll push further. This is why you must act consistently. Once you set a condition or consequence, you have to follow through. If you don't, every word you've said before becomes nothing more than ink on paper for them to disregard. Evidence is the only measure. One powerful question to wake yourself up every time you hear a promise from a narcissist is, if I didn't hear these words and only looked at their actions, what would I think about this relationship? This cuts through the fog of language and forces you to face the evidence. Jung would call this withdrawing energy from the illusion, a key step in returning to reality. A Jungian practice. Behavior journal. For 30 days, record what they do, not what they say. Promise tracking. For each promise, note the date they made it, then check 1 week and 1 month later to see if any real change occurred. Self-check. When you make a statement about your boundaries or needs, check whether your actions align with that statement. The benefits of trusting behavior. Break the disappointment cycle. You stop waiting for their future version to feel okay. Make clearer decisions. When you rely on evidence, you know when to stay and when to leave. Build self-respect. When your actions align with your values, you reinforce your belief in yourself, something the narcissist is always trying to erode. In summary, the narcissist's words are only tools to keep you hooked. Their actions are the truth you need to see. And just as importantly, your own actions will determine how they treat you. When you trust behavior over words, theirs and your own, you step out of the illusion they've built and return to the solid ground of reality where you have both choice and control. Part 5. Self-validate your worth. In any relationship with a narcissist, one of the most insidious traps is becoming dependent on their approval. You might believe that if they understood you were hurting, they would stop. Or that if they saw how hard you were trying, they would appreciate you more. But the truth is, they do not see you through the lens of reality. They see you through the lens of their needs and self-interest. Carl Jung once said, "What you think about yourself determines how you experience the world." This means that if you let your self-worth depend on how others see you, especially a narcissist, you will live in a distorted world where your confidence rises and falls with every look or word they give you. Why you shouldn't seek validation from a narcissist? They are not neutral. Their approval doesn't reflect truth. It reflects how they want you to feel in order to serve their agenda. They use it as a control tool. When you crave their praise, they know exactly when to give it and when to withhold it to make you try harder. They are inconsistent. Today they might say you're the only one who understands me, and tomorrow they'll mock you don't understand anything. If you look for your worth in a place like this, you'll remain lost in an emotional maze, hoping and despairing at the same time, with the exit always out of reach. Self-validation, the key to freedom. Jung described this as connecting with the self, the center of your being, where your truth and inherent value reside. When you self-validate, you no longer need the narcissist to stamp your emotions or decisions as legitimate. Self-validation means acknowledging your own feelings. I feel hurt is enough. You don't need anyone else to agree for it to be real. Recognizing your own needs, I need respect, is a valid reason to set a boundary, no matter what others think. Accepting yourself, not because you're perfect, but because you are inherently worthy without begging for approval. Shift your focus to healthy support systems. Instead of pinning your hopes on the narcissist changing, seek connection and validation from healthy sources. Friends or family who respect your boundaries. Mentors, therapists, or support communities. Self-nourishing activities. Journaling, art, sports, meditation. This not only helps you feel heard and understood, but also reinforces the truth that your worth is not dependent on one toxic person. A Jungian self-validation exercise. Record your personal values. Write down 10 things you're proud of about yourself, unrelated to anyone else's opinion. Dialogue with the self. Each morning, spend a few minutes reminding yourself, I am worthy. I don't need permission to feel or to exist. Empower your choices. When you want to do something, ask, If I truly respected myself, what would I do right now? Closing the main section, the big picture. From accepting that they will not change, to not taking things personally, to setting strong boundaries, trusting actions over words, and finally self-validating your worth. These are the 5 pieces that form a mental defense system when facing a narcissist. Carl Jung would see this as a journey out of identification with another person's shadow and back into alignment with your authentic self. Each step is a moment where you take back power you once unconsciously handed over to them. You cannot change them, but you can absolutely change the way you participate in this relationship. And when you do, you don't just escape the cycle of abuse, you become stronger, freer, and more deeply rooted in who you truly are. We've just gone through 5 core principles to not only survive, but to stand strong and grow when faced with a narcissist. Accept they will not change. Don't take things personally. Set firm boundaries. Trust actions over words, and self-validate your worth. If you look closely, all 5 have one thing in common. They are not about controlling or changing the other person. They are about returning to and taking ownership of yourself. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." That darkness is not only the pain and fear within you, but also the difficult truth that the narcissist may never become the person you hoped for. But when you dare to face that truth, you begin to untangle the invisible cords they've wrapped around your mind. You stop seeking their approval, stop letting their praise or criticism dictate your mood. You know what you want, what you don't want, and you have the courage to protect it. You'll notice something interesting. When you no longer react according to the script they expect, their power dissolves. And in that empty space, you rediscover your own inner voice, a voice that's been drowned out for far too long. That voice will remind you, you don't have to be the fixer to be worthy of love. You don't need permission to feel, to say no, or to walk away. You have the right to choose peace over chaos. If you're at the beginning of this journey, be patient with yourself. Healing is not a straight line, and there will be days when it feels like you're back at square one. But each time you apply one of these principles, even in the smallest way, you're strengthening the foundation for a freer, healthier life. And remember, you are not alone. There's a community of people walking through the same thing, who understand that the greatest victory is not winning an argument with a narcissist, but not needing to enter that argument at all. If this video has given you a new perspective or more strength to protect yourself, hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Every week, we'll keep exploring practical strategies combined with the deep wisdom of Carl Jung, so you can not only escape the toxic cycle, but also step into a journey of full personal growth. You deserve a life where your worth is defined by no one but you. And that journey starts right now.